Welcome back to the Thursday Liberty Lineup.
Free Zone, the Liberty Lineup radio show, where independent thought just can't be bought.
I'm an American, red, white, and blue.
Welcome to the Liberty Lineup. I am Ben McClintock with Enoch Moore from DefendingUtah.org. We are the naked truth, defending the truth no matter what.
How you doing today?
Awesome. How are you, Enoch?
I am doing great. Let's check our mic levels and make sure everybody can hear me.
We have a hot show for you today, everybody. We are going to blow your mind.
So if you are listening and you want to let anyone else know that there's some breaking news coming.
We've got gun confiscation in Utah County. We've got legislators that are going to be exposed today. If you want to know what's going on, you better get in and get your friends to listen in today. This is going to be hot.
This is exclusive behind-the-scenes interviews we did. We have audio clips, and we have smoking guns, and you are going to want to tune in. So if you are a political junkie or you have a friend who's a political junkie for Utah, call them up and say there's something they're going to talk about on the Liberty Lineup on K-Talk today, and I don't know what it is, but you're going to want to hear it.
And the show today is sponsored by EOS Mobile. They are the cell phone company for supporting conservative causes. If that's something that you've got a cell phone anyways, check out EOS Mobile. Today on the show, we've got a story. And we've done stories about gun confiscation in Utah County before. The story of Mark Berg on how the city of American Fork took his gun away from him for defending himself. And that's something that we notice in these cases is guns, as long as you use them for hunting or for just kind of on display in your home, nobody's going to give you a hard time. But when you actually use it to defend yourself, that's when you're going to get into some trouble. And that was the case there in American Fork. And now in Provo, we've got a case there where looks like the city is taking away people's gun rights in defense of a private corporation, meaning Google, to defend Google. We've got an individual there that in Provo that was defending his property. He had people trespassing, and so he used his weapon to be able to defend his family. Let's get to Ray in Provo. Ray, thanks for joining us. Ray, you there?
Yeah. I'm here.
Awesome. So Ray, tell us your story.
Wow. Well, first off, I wanted to congratulate you, Ben, and Enoch for launching your show. I didn't know this place, and I appreciate you having me on and letting me share my story, because I think it's important for people to know just what's going on, especially in the city of Provo with Google Fiber. And so where to begin?
From the beginning.
From the beginning, okay. Well, there are a lot of details with what happened with me and my family. Google Fiber is in Provo, and they offer a free internet service for the Provo and I think some cities throughout the nation here. And my wife and I, just by principle, we know that nothing that's free is free. You know, there's no such thing as anything free in this world. There's always a price, whether it's monetary or something else. If it's our liberties or our rights or whatever it is, there's some price to it. So we declined to have Google Fiber in our home. And
so recognizing that nothing's free, right? That's your point?
Yeah.
Is when somebody's giving away something for free, especially that normally costs $50 to $100 a month, what's the catch here? You're thinking, right?
Well, yeah. What's the catch? And I mean, if I just look ahead with a little bit of foresight, I mean, it doesn't feel like free market. It feels like still the competition. There's some kind of a juggernaut. I don't know whether or not the government is involved with them or not. I don't know any of these facts for sure. Cronyism. but it's to eliminate competition. And then from what I understand, too, it's a very temporary thing. There will be a fee eventually in the future, but it's just temporarily. It's free for all Provo residents.
So it's like the crack dealer where he gives you drugs for free to start with and then gets you hooked and then comes in later on and jacks the price up.
And jacks the price up because there's no one left to sell him it. I mean, he's the only competitor in town.
Right. Well, yeah,
So,
how can a private company compete with free?
Exactly. None of them can. So we opted in to just pay. We paid, and this is so backwards of our neighbors. They didn't understand this. We chose to pay a company that does, in our opinion, a pretty garbage service. But the point is that we recognize that at least it's a company that's competing. So we stuck with our Comcast service, cable, internet, all of that. So that's the beginning of it all. And Google Fiber, ever since they launched their program, you'll see their trucks and little minivan things driving all over town. And they came to our house multiple times at the door and wanted just to come into our yard because we had no fence. We're the only property in this four property space. In the dead center of these four properties, if that makes sense, right in the center of it is a post that they can access to do things with Google Fiber. And all the other neighbors in these four parcel lots have fences on their property, so it's not as easy. And we didn't have one yet. We can't afford it, so we didn't build it yet. So they thought just because they had easy access that ours is the one that they're going to come into, set up their ladders in our backyard, and finagle with the wires back there that weren't even in our yard. The post was in the neighbor's yard.
So the access for Google Fiber is not in your yard, but they're coming in your yard to access it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, this is the whole roundabout story is that they say I think they're kind of under this umbrella as an utility. This is what we're learning. And Provo City is in the utility line is not our property. It's in the neighboring property that has a fence.
Right.
And so they said that they could, and then the justification they gave us at the door to me many times, and when I called into Google many times requesting to stop sending their guys to my property without proof of they said it's an easement. They have some kind of an easement.
So just to clarify for everybody, so you're declining the service, and that's one kind of part of the story. And then the next part of the story, they're trying to get onto your property to access a junction box or something that's on actually somebody else's. That's actually not on your property, right?
Exactly. It's not on our property. It's on the neighboring property that has a fence just to the east of us. So anyway, multiple times they've come. I've asked them politely, no guns involved. I've told them. One guy was even in the yard. I asked him to leave. So this is repeated times telling Google, calling them directly, please stop sending them without proof of the easement. They keep leaving. They never provide. They just leave. So finally, I'm at work. It was 6 months ago in the early summer. I'm at work, and my wife calls me. She tells me there's men in our backyard, 2 men. They're not in uniform. They have trucks out front, but she went out and asked them who they were and why they're in our yard. My wife is pregnant. We homeschool our kids. So all the kids were home too, including my wife. And she asked them to leave the kids inside, make sure everything was okay, and asked them. They said, "Oh, we're with Google Fiber," and she let them know, "We've told you we don't want you in our yard without proof of your easement, without some kind of proof to justify you being here."
So they just in the past they just claimed easement. They've never been able to show you any documentation that they actually have the legal right to enter your property without your permission.
Right, and yeah, correct. And it wasn't these same 2 men though. This is. There's so many different details to this story. These were different men, but they all still said they were Google Fiber, and expected me to just take them at their word that they're allowed to come into my property when I say they can't, just at their word because they have an easement that's a supposed easement, and and so my wife calls me, tells me she talked to them, they won't leave our property, and she says that they say they're Google Fiber, but they don't have any Google uniforms. So we took pictures of all of this. They're all just hoodies.
So just plainclothes guys showing up, claiming that they're from Google, and without any documentation that they're allowed to be on your property without your permission.
Yeah, and no trucks. The Google Fiber trucks. Everyone knows them. They're obvious. They have that rabbit on there, that colorful rabbit in the blue and white. These were just regular. This was a regular type.
So the vehicles weren't even marked.
They could have been anybody.
No, it could have been. It had some MCI logo, which I've later found out through this court process is that there's some kind of contractor with Google Fiber.
But how would anybody, the average person, even know that?
No, they won't. That's the point.
Yeah.
There's you have to provide evidence. Just like when a cop pulls you over, they ask for a license, even though I don't necessarily agree with that. But you have to provide evidence. You have to provide evidence that you are who you say you are.
Right.
And that's what's so backwards about this. So this,
We hear stories in the news all the time about people faking IDs either as an officer or saying that they're from the utility company when they're really not.
It's called social engineering. It's a common tactic among criminals, socially engineer people to gain access.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean.
So those are kind of red
So
flags going off in your mind. You don't know who these guys are. Right?
Yeah, red flags going off. They say they're Google Fiber, so if they actually are, I've told them not to come without proof of easement. I've never seen these men before. They're not the same ones that have come before. These are different men. There are two of them, and my wife is home alone with our kids, and they're in my yard. This is just, it's black and white to me. These guys shouldn't be here. And so frustration, nerves, fear, whatever you want to call it. I mean, whole jumble of emotions. I grab my shotgun, and I come up the stairs, and I was just talking to my wife about this. I come up the stairs. She sees me with it, and she's, it's a gun, and so she's a little concerned. And so I say, "Babe, I know what I'm doing," and she says, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah. There's no bullets in the gun. I'm not shooting anyone today, but I'm going to get these guys off our property." I open my gun right at the door as I'm leaving my house. I open my shotgun. I check that there's no bullets, and then I open my side door, which they can't see. They're in the back side, the opposite side of the yard. So I open my door, and because I just cleared it, it did rack, but I wasn't actually trying to rack it. It just closed because I let go with one hand to turn the doorknob. And as I did that, they heard that, which is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with racking.
Right. There's no laws about racking your weapon on your own property.
Yeah, on my own property. So I mean, and it wasn't
even
really
fire
a rack. It was just no. It was. Yeah,
was
no, I
unloaded.
definitely didn't fire it.
Yeah.
It was unloaded completely. I walk out. They heard the rack, and the manager was on the ground, who later testified that he was there because they knew that I didn't want them there, but he came as a backup. He comes, and so he heard the gun rack, and he says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa!" He started.
So they came onto your property knowing in advance that you didn't want them there. He's unidentified. He doesn't have he doesn't have anything to identify himself, either whether it's a badge or a shirt or a vehicle, and he's coming knowing that you don't want him there.
Exactly. And this has all come out in my in this pretrial that I've done with these guys so far. 6 months later, going to court, and so he hears that he's whoa, and I start yelling at these guys. I did swear because I was upset, and probably my biggest regret out of the whole thing is that I used a bad word. But I swore, and I told him to get off my property. My wife's home alone. She's asked you to leave. We've told you to leave if you're Google Fiber, and we've told you guys that you're not welcome here. And my wife comes out by herself and tells you to leave, and you ignore her and tell her you got to make a paycheck, and that gives you the right to be on my property, and that is unacceptable. And I told him you have something. I think I said 5 minutes is the exact time, and I even thought that through. I didn't want them to. I was never going to shoot them. That's the point. Is that, if I was, I would say you got 30 seconds to get off my property, which is impossible. But I gave him 5 minutes to grab your ladders. I said, grab your ladders, grab your stuff, get off my property.
Okay, we're going to have to hold and go to a break real quick, and then finish this story. This is really riveting.
So we got Ray from Provo talking about gun confiscation, defense of private companies, and check out EOS Mobile, the cell phone for conservatives. We'll see you right after the break. This is Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore from DefendingUtah.org. We're back on K Talk Radio, AM 630, k-talk.com, with the Liberty Lineup, the Naked Truth segment, sponsored by EOS Mobile, the cell phone service for conservatives. We're talking with Ray in Provo about how they've worked, the city working with Google Fiber to violate his property rights, and when he defends his property, they threatened to throw him in jail and take away his gun rights. Before we went to the break, Ray, we were kind of given a brief overview of how this entered. You didn't want, first of all, you didn't want the free Google service. You felt that could be a big Trojan horse, and so you decided to not go with them. And then they have a like a junction box or an access box on a property adjacent to your own, not on your property. But they wanted to access it through your property, and you've told them over and over again when they've come to your house that no, please don't access your box that's not on. Don't access the Google box that's not on your property, Ray. And
Yep.
until they've got proof that they've got legal easement to your property. And so they've always come, right, with some kind of an identification of some kind, a Google truck, a Google shirt, something that shows that they're probably who they say they are. And then all of a sudden, you've got your wife's home alone, and these strangers come up that you've never seen before in an unmarked car and not in any clothing that you could identify, trying to enter your property without your permission. And so she calls you and tells you to come home and tells you to kind of protect your family. And so you go out there with an unloaded weapon, just to kind of as a show of force. You're not threatening it, and you're not brandishing it. You're just showing that you're able to defend yourself if need be.
But even if you were, you'd be well within your rights in protecting your private property, right? In America, we believe in the principle of private property, right? As a principle, and but just to be cautious, you didn't go too far with it. It was just a show to let them know that you were exercising your authority, your sovereign authority on your property, so to speak, right?
Yeah. And that you didn't know who they were, and that you were like, "Get off my property! This is private property. Without my permission, you can't be here." Basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't. That we don't have to take you at face value. I don't know who you are. I come home and you're men that I've never met before that are saying you're with a company that I don't subscribe to, and I voted with my dollars, and I voted for I'm paying a company to bring full and internet to my home and electricity to utilities, but I did not pay Google on purpose, and I don't want them in my yard. And my wife is home. This is my property. My property doesn't begin just with my front door. It begins with my property line all the way to the back and left and right.
Right.
These guys had no right to be there without identifying themselves.
Right. So kind of take off the story from where we left off before the break of you're going out there and you're telling them that they've got 5 minutes to pack up their goods and leave.
Yeah, pack your ladders, everything, take it off my property. My wife's home alone. You shouldn't be here without identifying yourselves. You know, that's basically the extent of it. The guy says, "Oh, you're going to get arrested for this. You're going to get arrested for this." The guy up on the pole, and I said, I don't remember if I even replied to that. I just said, "Get off my property." I was pretty upset, with the situation. So they left, and then I went in immediately, put the gun away. It was under it anyway, so I just my gun away, and I looked out the window, and I can see they were all both on their cell phones. And they called the Provo Police Department, and so I was looking at this, and I remember thinking, well, maybe I should call the police just before they get here, so that they at least know that I don't have my gun out anymore, or something like that. I figured I should just try to cover my bases, so I called Provo Police, and the dispatch woman was just very kind. You could tell she already judged me based on the call you'd gotten from the other guys. She says, "Just put your gun away, sir," or just very demeaning tone. And I said, I let her know the gun has been put away. They're not on my property anymore, just like I asked. They're off my property. The gun has been away. It's not out anymore.
So you weren't trying to hide anything. You called them.
No, I called the police. Yeah. I wanted to make sure I'm not trying to do anything illegal here. I know I didn't do anything illegal.
The sheriff should be protecting your right to private property, not Google's right to have corporate dominance irrespective of your rights.
And to violate your property rights to access something that's not even on your property.
So you would just expect if you call the authorities that they'd be on your side since you were the one protecting your private property and they were not identifying themselves.
Yeah, very backwards, very, very backwards, everything that happened from here going forward. So the police arrived. They arrived at the end of the street to talk to the gentleman first and spoke to them and got their side of the story. And then they both walked up slowly. And while I was standing in my front yard, I didn't even wait inside the house because I don't want them to knock and bang and yell and threaten because I know how things can get pretty heated with a gun. So I waited outside with my wife, and it just so happened the LDS missionaries walked by, and I said hello to them. So they were talking with us, the two LDS missionaries for that area there. The cops were coming up, and they were leaving, and I said, elders, if you wouldn't mind, I'd appreciate some personal witness here of just any additional eyes here, because me and my wife are here alone. The police are behind you; they're coming up, and the elders agreed to stick around for a little bit, and they did. But then the police told them to take a hike or something like that. I forgot how I worded it.
Because the police have that authority.
So the elders left, and now we're there alone, just me and my wife. And this is in the middle of the afternoon. It was around 11 or 12, so most people are at work, at least men, and so there wasn't a lot of people there. So I'm already nervous as is with some of the historical police things that are going on in the world. Well, I won't go into that, but so the police come and they posture up on me, of course, and have their hands on their guns, and they're talking to me, and I don't remember too many of the details. The end result here is that I'm driving away in a cop car, heading to the Utah County Prison, and I'm watching these two men walk back onto my property after all of this that was just happened. They're escorted back onto my property while I'm taken to prison like a common criminal.
So you're defending your property from unidentified individuals, and the police come and throw you in jail and while your wife's home alone, these other people come back on your property to access something that's not even on your property.
Exactly, and then tried to insist that as they were, how they duck your head in the car so you don't hit it, because I'm handcuffed here in front of right in front of my wife, in front of my kids. I'm handcuffed. I'm told that I'm being arrested for pointing a gun, which I never did, and later came out I didn't know my neighbor was home smoking a cigarette, him and his wife, and they watched the whole thing. They saw me never point a gun at these buffoons.
So you've got witnesses that show that you weren't doing what you were being charged with.
Exactly. I have two other witnesses besides me, and if it was just my wife and me, it would be 2 against 2, which, from what I understand, I'm innocent until proven guilty. But that's not how it works in Provo anymore.
Did the county sheriff take a position on your case? Because it's his job in this scenario to be standing up for your rights. That's what he was elected to do. If there's overreach by people lower down in the department, the county sheriff is your last line of constitutional defense, right? Did he ever take a position, Sheriff Tracy?
Have you talked to Jim Tracy?
No, I'm just so dumbfounded. I don't know. I'm learning. I don't know what the next step is. I don't know. I didn't even know that. I knew the sheriff was elected as takes an oath up the Constitution, but I didn't. I just didn't know. So I haven't reached out to him at all, and it's getting close, and that's why I'm so urgent about getting this word out. And this
when you get the word out on this, that the city of Provo is taking away people's gun rights and throwing them in jail for defending their own property. Provo is throwing people in jail for defending their own property and then lying about it and taking a private company's story over a homeowner who's defending themselves from people that are really trespassing to access something that's not even on their property.
And I'd say it's the local government's favorite private company.
Right. Yeah, the big money guys coming into town, and they've got to squash the little citizen to protect their big money interests.
Yeah, and send a message. That's really how I feel. That's what I feel like is happening. They want to send a message to everyone else who would even contemplate standing up for property rights, their right to defend their family, their wife and kids, whatever it is. They're sending a message. Don't do it. You do this. This is what's going to happen to you. You're going to be. I mean, they confiscated my gun. They wanted to go in my house. That's what I was going to tell you. They tried to get in my house.
So in Provo, hold on. Sorry, Ray. So in Provo, if you defend yourself, they're going to disarm you, and they're going to throw you in jail. Ray, we've got a caller. Jay, Jay, you got a comment?
Yeah, I sure do. In regards to Ray's situation, we've got a couple comments. First of all, I'd like to offer, my support to him, because definitely feel for what he's going through. When I listen to his descriptions, I see a flaw in here, wherein displaying any firearm, period, can be misconstrued as brandishing a firearm, which is probably where he's falling down on this. What I have done, and I know this is after the fact, but it might help him in the future, with situations like this, is I had census people who were harassing me, and I actually filed a notice of a criminal trespass against them. I hand-delivered it to the Census Bureau person, and it specifically orders them to stay off the property, period. And so there's a legal option for that. The other option is, rather than, approaching people on your property, or even, psychologically kind of to sway them away, the garden hose works really good for intruders. So,
well, and intruders that might not do you harm, that might not mean you harm it.
That's
kind of hard to know
yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. But I agree with him in this situation. I am always packing 100% of the time, and if someone is in my yard and I don't know who they are, I would definitely be approaching with caution. But these people, from what he is saying, have purposely concealed their identity to get onto that property. Now, they may have an easement. Those situations do exist, where there's an easement on your property.
But you need to prove that. You need to come on the property and say, hey, I've got a legal easement, and you've got to let me on. But they've never done that.
That's correct. And the fact that they haven't done it puts them theoretically in the wrong, because they haven't even made an attempt to explain to him that they have this easement.
Exactly.
And so I totally agree with Ray on this. I hope Sheriff Tracy is on his side as well, because Sheriff Tracy is also at risk in this gun confiscation situation.
Right.
Number one, because, like you say, he is the elected official. His charge is to protect our rights and defend us from the federal usurpations, and that's one of the things that's coming. Is this usurpation of gun confiscation?
Yeah. And
one of the things that we as citizens can do, if we have a sheriff who is willing to stand by us on this, is to offer our services in his support.
Right.
So
hey, Jay, I thank you for your call. We need to let you go and go to the next caller. But,
you bet, yeah.
But I appreciate you calling in. We
options.
definitely need to get people involved in understanding what their sheriff's job is. Thanks,
Jay. Late. It's not too late to file that notice.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Jay. So, Ray, we've got. I'm glad we didn't lose you. We got you back. You still there, Ray?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. We've got.
We have 2 minutes. We can take another caller, or do you have some thoughts on?
Let's just go to the break real quick. Actually, we should be going to the. We need to actually take on another topic, but we should. I do want to kind of keep you over and talk about kind of finishing this up real quick. So when we get back from the break, we'll be talking again to Ray and how they're being affected. And we've got your calls. If you've got a comment on this, give us a call at 801-254-5855. This is Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore with DefendingUtah.org. After, we're going to be talking about this issue with Ray in Provo. You're listening to the Liberty Lineup, and this is The Naked Truth. We'll take your calls right after the break at 801-254-5855. If you'd like to join the conversation, call us now at 801-254-5855. We'll be right back. Tell us what you think about this. Call us at 801-254-5855. And we'll be right back. This is the Liberty Lineup, with Defending Utah and the Naked Truth. Sorry, we've got some extra.
We've got 30 seconds to the break.
Exactly to the break. We've just got a couple seconds. I thought we were going to go into the music, but
we have 30 more seconds.
So, Ray, in those 30 seconds, I want to give you more time than that, so I don't want to do this, but it's important. If anybody out there is supporting Ray and understands what's really going on, contact us, kind of have us be the liaison. You can contact Defending Utah at info@defendingutah.org. Again, that's info@defendingutah.org.
Here comes the break.
And so when we get back from the break, we'll be continuing this. And if you want to help him out, again, contact us at info@defendingutah.org. This is the Liberty Lineup, and this is the Naked Truth. Radio AM 630 k-talk.com with the Liberty Lineup, the Naked Truth segment with Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore from defendingutah.org. Sponsored by EOS Mobile, the cell phone service for conservatives. We're talking with Ray from Provo about gun confiscation.
I cannot think of a more dangerous legislator up there, and perhaps not any in the whole United States.
Well, that's a little preview of our next hour.
Yep. So stay tuned for that. But right now we're talking with Ray and about how defending his own property against some unidentified intruders, the city of Provo arrested him and is threatening to take away his right to own a gun. We've got this is a surprise. A pretty hot topic. We've got a lot of callers on this, Ray.
We have a lot of callers coming in. So should we take the next caller? Or Ray, do you have some thoughts before we take the next caller? Wait, we lost Ray. Hey, Ray, okay, your volume is down. Apologize.
Yeah, I'm just glad to hear there's a lot of callers and that support. It's just people need some. I don't want to talk about things anymore. I'm sick of that. I'm going to do something about this, and I'm trying to do something about it. You know, I'm working with Morgan Philpott, who loves the Constitution as much as I do. He's working with me. He's doing what he can. He's almost virtually working free. For us, we're still paying him, but it's anyway. This is about taking action. I'm not here to talk anymore. I'm here to. I want to get something done.
Okay, so let's take a caller. Line number 5. Phil, let's push the button.
Nope.
Line 5. Push it hard.
There you go, Phil.
Phil, you there?
Yes, I am.
Thanks for calling. What's up?
Okay, first of all, I'm not bashing Ray. I am foursquare in his corner that he's resisting Google on this level. That's good. Google is evil, even though their tagline is "Do no evil." They are evil. But the problem with him going out armed as he did, when I was a police officer, we were trained that a weapon never came out unless you intended to fire. Period. So Ray's intent to fire was immediately counteracted by the weapon being unloaded, therefore reducing it to the level of either a hammer or a bat, whatever configuration it was he took out there. So as a defensive weapon, it really becomes worthless, except one might argue for the view factor of,
right.
You look armed and it looks dangerous.
Yeah.
In which case, then you are projecting a danger with intent in their direction.
But even if he was... there was a threat on his private property that refused to identify and refused to leave.
Well, so the point I'm trying to get to, though, is if he felt there was a threat, unless he's going to go out armed to face the threat, armed with ammunition even, then I think his sensibly safer course of action would have been merely to call the police and say, I have trespassers on my property, and have them eject the trespassers, rather than take this potential problem of It's sad in America in the 21st century that we've been reduced to we can't even have a loaded or unloaded firearm on our own property, and that's wrong. And perhaps this is
and
the
I
line
think that's
we have
the
to
point.
start
We can kind of
fighting
play
at.
Monday morning quarterback. But if I've got my wife is home alone and we've got some people that refuse to leave our property, I'm going to do whatever I can. And, to whatever aspect that might be, it's important that we kind of realize that we can't be neutered. We can't have a government that tells us we can't defend ourselves against an unidentified person trespassing on our property after we've told them to leave.
Yeah, well, if there are avenues, then okay. If they've been told to leave, they haven't. Then it's a police matter. Now I have actual grounds upon which to have them arrested or ejected off the property. And I'm not doing this to bash on Ray at all.
Right.
I'm saying for our own, we have to take lessons away from all the problems that we come across in life. So for everybody else listening, here's just to put this in your mind in advance that we have sometimes more than one option. And we can't be corralled into looking at a single option in every instance. Right. So I was just putting it out there to have we see our problem is we're not thinking broadly enough to fight all these problems that we've got, and we have to really exercise ourselves to think outside of our usual frame of reference sometimes even. Just wanted to put that out there.
Appreciate the call. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Phil.
Or Phil. Sorry, Phil.
That was Phil. Okay, we have another.
I got Randy. Let's see here.
Randy on line 3 wants to talk about the legal description of an easement. I was actually thinking to look that up myself, and I couldn't find it because I had heard that power companies are kind of taking that beyond the description that they actually have. So maybe you have some thoughts on that, Randy.
Yeah, there should be a county surveyor's office that you could get a land plat that shows the legal boundaries and legal descriptions of the property.
Right.
That would define it. There, I've seen the one on my property, and there is back where the utility poles have wires running between them, and there is an easement there on my property. But I don't think these guys. I think they have to set that easement up legally. I don't think they can just do it willy-nilly.
Right, but it's their job. It's the burden of proof is on the person claiming the easement. They would need to come in and say, "I've got a right to be on your property." So the easement issue is almost kind of a separate thing. That's kind of what led to this. But the major issue, as I see it, is an unidentified people coming onto property where they've been told to leave and then won't leave.
And then the city takes their side
with no proof.
Have you contacted a group called the Institute for Justice?
Ray, is that something you've done?
They take those type of cases quite frequently. It's a legal institute that is set up to defend the citizens' rights.
Okay.
Institute for Justice.
Also, the NRA might have some legal action team that they might be involved in it. You didn't? Were you holding the gun in your hand, or was it just holstered on you, or what? What was the?
Yeah, no, I held it with one hand, pointing it in the air, with my left hand commanding and directing these men to leave my property. So my left hand, it was straight up into the air, never pointed at a person. The way I look at it is, with the caller before, is that it pointed at someone. That's the intent to shoot. I that's what I've learned. Never put a gun unless you intend to shoot it. And I had no intent of shooting it. These men didn't display any firearms. They just weren't identified men in my yard. It's that simple. My wife is home. My kids are home. They won't identify themselves. They say they're Google and they expect us to take it face value. And
I think Google is the CIA myself, but I won't deal with Google. I've deleted all of their things off, and they always have a big questionnaire where they want to know why you're leaving. I always tell them, I'm leaving because I didn't have it on this machine. I bought it, it was there, or I installed something and it accidentally got put there. I don't like you forcing yourself on me. In fact, I found a new replacement for Google, which is out of Russia, by the way. And a lot of people like to demonize Russia, but they're becoming more free. We're trading places with Russia. From what I grew up with through the Cold War years, Russia was the demon, and we're trading places with them. We're doing everything they used to do, and they're starting to do the things we used to do.
Hey, Phil, we got some background noise. We're going to have to let you go, but I appreciate your call.
Please call again.
Please call again. And we've got another caller. We've got David in West Jordan. David, you've got a comment?
Yeah, I just know here in West Jordan City that you only have to ask somebody to leave your property one time, and then you can use deadly force if necessary to remove them from your property. And my brother was in a court case with a domestic dispute against his ex-wife that was dismissed because he used physical force to remove her from his property after they had asked her to leave. Now, he was charged with domestic violence and, had to go defend himself in court. But at least here in West Jordan, you have that right to defend your property, and you only have to ask somebody to leave one time.
Just once. And so I wonder what the rule is there in Provo. It doesn't seem like if that is the law, they're circumventing the law to support a private company opposed to a private property owner trying to defend himself.
And, it may be the judge, because in my brother's case, they tried to extend the court case because he didn't have a lawyer at the time, and the judge basically made him go forward with the case. But I really think because the judge had already reviewed it, he knew what the outcome was going to be.
Right.
And, at some point it came to where my brother was cross-examining the police officer that responded, and he asked the cop point blank, "Do you even know why you responded to my property?" And the judge was very curious to hear the cop's answer too. But then, once it was all said and done, the cop basically, gave his peace of mind to my brother's ex-wife and told her and him that he had every right to use physical and or deadly force to remove her from the property. So it may be different in Provo City, but maybe there's a county or a state ordinance that coincides with this ability to move somebody from your property with force.
Even if the law is different, the principle says that that's what people have the right to do to protect their property.
Exactly.
Hey, I appreciate the call, David. Thanks for your insight.
Please call
again.
Thank
you. I listen to you guys all the time.
Thank
you.
Appreciate it. So, Ray, we've just got a couple of more minutes. You want to just kind of maybe give us a recap of everything real quick and kind of tell us what's going on?
Yeah. So the end result is I moved. One of the police officers says when my wife and I were talking with them in the yard, if you like the laws, how they're here, you could always move. And I said, and that's what I did. I sold my home and I moved. I'm no longer in Utah County, or at least no longer Provo anyway. So I don't know. I just I'm about to go to trial by jury here in about a month, right around just time for Christmas. Yippee!
Maybe we can get you a good Christmas present and keep your freedom to defend your family.
Absolutely. And so I'm facing 2 aggravated assault charges, 2 felonies, and the prosecutor offered me one as a courtesy, as a plea bargain. And no way.
Isn't that nice of him?
Yeah, isn't that really nice?
As a reward of defending your family and your property, he's only going to charge you with 1 felony. Thanks so much.
Exactly. Thanks so much. Yeah, Merry Christmas. But what I'm going to say, I don't know. There's just, I don't know. Outside of the Constitution, I understand. I've acknowledged to myself, to my wife, to me, that, they didn't have a gun. I can say that. They didn't have a gun. They weren't showing any type of immediate threat. But, even having said that, though, this wasn't about shooting them. This was about getting unwanted strangers off my property.
Okay, we got 30 seconds to break, Ray.
Yeah, and if they would have just shared some proof or some evidence, I would have still objected to them being there, but I would have let it happen. No gun involved, nothing. So
yeah, show some evidence. Show me why you're allowed to be on my property to access things that aren't on my property, even though you're not identified, and I've told you to leave and you haven't left.
Okay, Ray, thanks for being a guest today. We appreciate it.
Yep.
And we are exposing that why governments, even local governments in Utah, put corporations above the rights of the individual. And we are going to come back after the break.
Special thanks to our sponsor, EOS Mobile, the cell phone service that supports conservative candidates and causes. Go to EOSCELL.com for more information. The Liberty Lineup Show. This is Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore with DefendingUtah.org. We'll be back the next hour talking about the most corrupt legislators in the state, as well as an update on the family.
Why do we sit down when all should be standing? And why do we back down at the critical moment, like running away from the waves of the ocean? We head for the hills with the high tide approaching, as sand slips away from the castle. When it's time to stand upright, why do we falter, like placing our freedom on the sacrificial altar? We hold tight to our fears and defend our oppressors as we fight for their lives and become the transgressors. As pacifists transform to violent aggressors. But I'm only a stranger here. I'm a long, long way from my home. And they say I can't change all the things I find strange. But what can one man do alone? They say, what can one man do alone? When is the right time to stand up for freedom? Could it be when you start to feel creating children who'll inherit the pain and the debt of this nation and be slaves to the banks that cause hyperinflation, who are masters of commerce, lies, and bad legislation? Whoa, if you looked in the eyes of 1,000 young children through fences of razors, their innocence stolen, as the red flag of tyranny flies in the open, is that when you finally notice? Whoa, whoa, but I'm only a stranger here. I'm a long, long way from my home, and they say I can't change all the things I find strange. For what can one man do alone? Is what can one man do alone? I'm only a stranger looking to find better nature in my fellow man. But they keep telling me it's a sin to be free, and that's more than I'm willing to stand. Where will you be when the order is given to censor your mind, as free speech is forbidden, as martyrs for peace from the world will be driven away by the sound of a bellowing thunder and choke on the blood of a dream going under? As arrogant men tear up our Constitution, and from every direction we cry revolution, standing together and without permission, soldiers for truth in the war of attrition, the love of our country as our ammunition. Oh, but I'm only a stranger here. I'm a long, long way from my home, for I am not one man alone. Yes, I'm only a stranger. I'm a long, long way from my home, and I'm going to change all the things I find strange, for I know